You probably clicked on this video because you can't focus or have a problem to focus. Well, this video is going to lead you into a quick journey on how you can actually train your brain to focus. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of this video and you actually can start taking action towards focusing more, subscribe to the channel. I know these videos are helping tons of people to go to the next level, to increase their productivity, time management. So subscribe for more videos and share. Why not? It won't cost you anything. Let's get to focus because this is what you're here for. Maybe you're gonna ask yourself this question: is it possible to train your focus? And the neuroscience backed answer is yes, it is possible to train your brain to focus more. And I'm going to show you a step by step, backed up by science, how to train your brain to focus more. But for this, I'm gonna have to get a little nerdy, so stay with me. If you're not used to some terms or neuroscience, just stay with me because the most important thing is for you to understand the concepts, understand the theory behind on how to focus more. And then after you watch this video, you can go to Google and then you can search the terms if you don't know what the term means. But the most important thing is understanding that yes, it is possible to train your brain to focus more. And I'm gonna give you 8 practical strategies on how to activate this hyper focus mode in your brain. The first strategy you need to understand is that you need to strengthen your prefrontal cortex, this part of the brain right here in the front, and your attentional networks. I'm gonna explain a little bit more. So the prefrontal cortex is the brain's conductor for attention. So that's one of the things that's important for you to understand. It's the brain's conductor for attention. And the prefrontal cortex works with 2 other parts of the brain that are responsible for filtering distraction. And these 2 parts are the parietal cortex and the thalamus. Forget about all these names. The most important thing that you need to understand is that prefrontal cortex, very important part of the brain, and it uses 2 other parts of the brain to conduct attention and filter distractions. Okay, Rod, so how can I train this function to create more attention and more focus? Well, mindfulness exercises, meditation, focusing on a single object, those are trainings, very easy trainings that you can do to create more focus or train focus in your brain. And it's important because when you focus on a singular point of attention, you're actually activating the ACC, which is another part of the brain that improves focus, improves attention. So you're training this part of your brain to focus. You see, no matter the terms and you know, if you're not into neuroscience, the most important thing is that by knowing that you can train some parts of your brain to focusing on attention using exercises, practical exercises, you're enhancing your brain's ability to focus. And this is incredible because some studies, they show that if you practice mindfulness or attention to a single object or a single thing for 10 to 15 minutes daily in 8 weeks, you have proven that this part of your brain, the prefrontal frontal cortex, thickens, actually changes through neuroplasticity. And it actually reduces default mode activity, which is mind wandering. I know this term is a little bit more simple, maybe mind wandering. That's what happens to us when our mind is wandering. So doing this mindfulness exercise, you know, doing exercise that is training your focus, this is going to reduce the mind wandering. Also, another technique, which is very well known, is the Pomodoro technique for time management and focus, which is you do activities for 25 minutes and then you take a break for 5 minutes. in neuroscience, what you're doing is you're training your brain that there are periods of focus that you should be putting your attention to. So you're training your brain to understand these periods of attention. And just by signaling this to your brain, you're not only creating more focus, but you're also reducing fatigue. Yes, reducing the stress in your brain. Number two, we're going to talk about some stimulations for focus through neurotransmitters. What are neurotransmitters? These are substances in our brain that helps with the transmission of data, transmission of the enhancing of focus. So we're going to start with dopamine, which is obviously very well known. Dopamine is well known for critical motivation and sustained focus. How can you quickly boost dopamine? Well, you have to set achievable and smaller goals that triggers dopamine. So anything, let's say that you have a big project, okay? That's why in my trainings I enhance the fact that you have to break your goals into small, tiny tasks and projects, because every time you complete, you have a boost of dopamine, and that will create continuation, create motivation, okay? So dopamine is a neurotransmitter that helps you with not only focus, but also the continuation of tasks. Now, it's important to understand that you have to also avoid overstimulation of dopamine. What is overstimulation of dopamine? For example, if you are hooked on social media and you're addicted to reels, addicted to shorts, that is overstimulation of dopamine, because you're getting dopamine hits to its peak, okay? This is going to desensitize your brain, which means that your brain is only going to get used to peaks, high peaks of dopamine or high stimulation. So every time you have a low stimulation, you don't feel excited, so you can't focus. Your brain is signaling to you, this is not exciting to me, because you're training your brain with overstimulation. So you have to be very careful not to overstimulate dopamine through these quick releases of dopamine, because then once you achieve a peak and then you have the down is going to establish a new floor. It's going to be very hard for you to establish a new or higher peak. Another neurotransmitter is norepinephrine. Norepinephrine, it enhances alertness. How can you actually activate norepinephrine? Well, by exposure to cold, like the cold plunges or a cold shower. Yeah, that works because it stimulates this neurotransmitter and it helps you to enhance focus. Understanding about these neurotransmitters is extremely important, because there are practical exercises that you can do, like I mentioned before, on how to quickly enhance those the release of those hormones and neurotransmitters that are going to help you focus more. Number three strategy to enhance your focus is by reducing cognitive load. And what does that mean, Rod? Well, your prefrontal cortex, that part of the brain that I mentioned to you in the beginning of the video, it has a very limited bandwidth, okay? And multitasking, it actually drains the source of energy of your brain, which is glucose. It drains it faster. It's like you have in one battery a bunch of cables plugged in, which are draining battery faster, right? Let's say that, those power banks, right, that you charge your phone. If you have one cable connected to the power bank to your phone, is draining energy at a certain level. But if you have 5 phones connected to the same power bank, it's going to drain that energy much, much faster. And that's what multitasking will do in your prefrontal cortex. So how can you reduce the cognitive load to enhance focus? Well, it's very simple. Don't multitask, okay? Focus on a single task. Put all your effort and focus on a very single task. And I know at the beginning this is going to be hard, because some people are just naturally wired to want to multitask. I was like that. I had to actually train my brain to focus on a single task and put all the effort on a single task. But that was a training, okay? I was more inclined to be a multitasker. And yes, I can multitask when I need to, but if it's something that I need to put focus on to generate the amount of result that I want, I can train my brain to focus. Also, another strategy is externalizing your memory. What does that mean, right? Externalizing your memory means that you're using methods of unloading information, so it unloads from your brain, from your prefrontal cortex, to reduce cognitive load. Okay, that's why I say it's so important for you to create lists, to write down everything. Don't use your brain as a task manager. Write everything down in a list that can be executed. Every time you do this, you're reducing that cognitive load. No, you're not training your brain by memorizing everything. That's false. That's false information. You are not doing your brain a favor when you're trying to memorize everything. Your brain is your processor, okay? It needs to process information. But for better processing, you need to have a method that is not using the brain to memorize everything. Another very useful exercise or technique that I use is to reduce task switching, because when you do task switching, you're spending a lot of energy, okay? Especially tasks that are not related. So if you have to do task switching, work in a way, and I do a lot of that in my trainings and my workshops, create a bundle of tasks that if you need to switch tasks, they are similar, okay? So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say that that you have a part of your day that you separated to, and if you are organized through time management, you know this, that you have a part of your day that you dedicate to reading emails, right? And then your next activity needs to be something that is related to that activity. So when you're switching in between tasks, you reduce the cognitive load, you reduce the energy spent. Okay, so I would in this case bundle reading emails on my computer to another task that is computer associated, or I can also do on my computer, maybe review my to-do list, maybe review my project list that I can quickly open on another screen. You see that I'm task switching, but I am not using a lot of energy to do this task switching. It's very different than, let's say, I'm going from reading email to doing chores at my home, or to I have to grab my dry. I have to grab something at the pharmacy. It's a process of switching tasks that is saving energy. The next one, number 4 strategy, is training your sensory field. Okay, so every time that you sense something or you pay attention to something through noise, through your visual cortex, every time you do that, you are paying attention or focusing into that noise or into that visual stimulation, right? So you have to train your sensory to be able to pay attention to one thing if need be. And it's important to understand that the thalamus, a part of your brain, will filter attention. And there are two parts of your brain, the thalamus and the parietal cortex, that they have two very important functions. The thalamus will filter sensory input, exactly when you're filtering information. Now, the parietal cortex will focus on spatial attention. So how can you train your sensory filters to help you enhance focus? Very simple. You're gonna train your brain to focus on a single point of sound. Okay, so on a single sound. Let's say that you are in a room, then you can listen to like your refrigerator noise, or there are many sounds if you pay attention to, right? But try to focus on just one. Okay, let's say that you are outside and there are many noises. There's a car passing by, there's the plane, there's the bug, there's the bird, and there's a clicking sound. There are many sounds going on, and it's all in a mix, right? So when you're doing this training, the sensory training, you're focusing on just one single sound. And that sound could be that, bird chirping, right? So just focus, close your eyes and focus on that single bird and nothing else. At the beginning of this exercise might be hard to even pay attention to that. But every time that you are going to pay attention to something that is visual, what do? You squint your eyes and then you pay attention, you get closer, right? This is what you're focusing your visual into that single point. And that works, right? If you're reading a book, if you're paying attention to something that is small, and that works when you do that, right? It's the same thing with your audition, right? So it's the same exercise, but instead of looking at a single point and focusing, you're focusing your ears on that single sound. And it's a practice. And every time you do this, you are enhancing focus. Same way that you did with sound, like I said, you can do it with your vision. You're enhancing your focus vision by focusing on a single point. Pay attention to a single point or a single object, and pay attention to every single detail, the texture, the colors, all the bumps, the size. Just pay attention to that single object and do kind of an analysis. Pretend that you are analyzing this entire object, okay? Every time you do this, you're focusing and you are enhancing. By focusing, you're enhancing and training focus in your brain. The strategy number 5 is enhancing blood flow in your brain. That will also help you increase focus. How can I enhance blood flow? It's very easy to enhance the blood flow in your brain. Well, aerobic activity. Anything that you're doing that is aerobic will enhance blood flow. 20 to 30 minutes of exercising will enhance blood flow in your brain. Your nutrition is extremely important for blood flow in your brain that enhances focus. Hydration, the type of food that you eat, right? The source of the food that you eat, that's extremely important and will impact the blood flow that you have in your brain. So hydration and eating healthy, especially foods with omega-3, that is going to enhance your neural health, okay? And breathing exercises. This is amazing because it enhances the production or increases the production of nitric oxide, which it helps your prefrontal cortex to receive more oxygen, basically. Strategy number 6 is hacking your environment. Yes, every time that you work on your environment management, you are increasing focus. How can you do that? Well, number 1, you need to minimize distractions, right? So your environment is important when you try to focus, because if you're in a messy environment or a noisy or extremely noisy environment, that is going to impact directly on your focus. Well, let's say that you were working out of a coffee shop and it's noisy. Yeah, well, invest in some noise canceling headphones that you are not distracted by the noise surrounding you. Another strategy for you to go into the hyper focus mode, if you have issues with focus, is to dedicate a certain environment, okay, or a particular environment, either in your home or at your work, that you consider your productivity booth or your productivity space, right? So your brain is going to associate that particular section of your office or your home to ultra high focus productivity. Every time you dedicate a space, that space you're going to call, this is my zone, this is my flow zone. Your brain is going to recognize and then get into the mode of, okay, now I need to focus. And another way to hack your environment for increasing your focus is to avoid too much exposure to blue light. Blue light will actually reduce your ability to focus. And obviously blue light is coming from everywhere, from a computer, from your cell phone screen. But if you are going into this deep focused mode, avoid having spent too much time on any electronic at least 15 minutes before, okay? This is going to reduce the exposure of blue light and is going to enhance your productivity through focus. Number 7 for you to train your brain on how to focus is investing in your sleep and your non-sleep deep rest. Why is sleep so important? Well, because there's certain processes that are happening during your sleep that are crucial for attention, for focus, and for the enhancement of neuroplasticity as well. For example, the glymphatic system will clean the metabolic waste from your prefrontal cortex during sleep. So basically, your brain is recycling, metabolic waste during sleep. That's why it's important to go into the phases of sleep. Now, the amount of sleep, the number of hours, that depends, okay? I'm not gonna go into this, depends on each person. Some people are okay with 5 hours, others, they need 9 hours. It's very different for each person, okay? I am not a proponent of, okay, we all need 8 hours of sleep, okay? I've read enough studies, did my own research that it's proven that it's not one formula that works for everybody. Okay, so I'm not gonna suggest an amount of time, but I will suggest that you, knowing your sleep cycles and knowing how much time you sleep and how you wake up the next day, you will know, your body will tell you, like, you're not focusing, and then you pay attention to your sleep and you only slept 4 hours, or maybe you slept 5 hours. Your body will tell you, and then you need to have that self-regulation to know how much time you actually need to be able to focus more. And there's a neurotransmitter that is called adenosine. This neurotransmitter will actually lower your focus. Every time you're awake, it's almost like building up this neurotransmitter. So how do I reset this? Well, non-sleep deep rest. Every time you do a non-sleep deep rest session, you are actually resetting this neurotransmitter, which obviously is going to help you to focus and be more awake. And if you don't know about non-sleep deep rest, I actually did a video about it. It's on my YouTube channel, so you can look for it. But it's 10 to 20 minute session of mindfulness, of breathing exercises, of just you're not sleeping, right? You're reducing the activity of your brain intentionally for a period of time so you can reset. And then number 8 is neurofeedback and biofeedback. What does that mean? There are certain apps, even on your phone, and certain devices. There's a ring device, there's a wearable wrist device that can actually measure the activity of your brain, much like a ECG machine can do, that will tell you your level of stress, your level of focus. There's a bunch of things that can tell you through these devices. So I would recommend to invest in a device that you can actually measure these things and see where you're lacking, what time of day you're lacking focus, in which activities you're lacking more focus. The bottom line is focusing is training, okay? You can actually train your brain to focus pretty much like you're going to the gym and training your muscles to grow. You can train your brain to focus through these strategies that I mentioned on this video. Well, I hope you were able to focus on this video. All kidding aside, I hope you enhance your focus by applying these techniques in your life. And I know for certain that this will make a big difference in your results. I'll see you on the next video. God bless you.